going live. We are going live. We're live. Hey.
And we are live.
We're live.
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 And we are live.
So
We're live.
alive.
Alive. Live and alive.
Yeah, we wouldn't. Oh, here we go. Hello.
How's it going, everybody?
This evening is Foxy Grandma themed right now. Notice I have a capelet on.
So cute.
So cute. And I even have a little buckle right here.
Mm-hmm. My sweater isn't.
No, that's Foxy Grandma. Look
Okay.
at that.
Okay. Yeah. And I got the hair slicked back, pulled back. It's like the
Oh yes.
kind of tight laced like.
Yeah, you're like art historian grandma.
Right.
She got her degree from Brown. And we both have some hot.
And you're the cuddly grandma that makes cookies. And
yeah, we have blankets and everything.
You do. Yeah.
You want some blankets?
Grandma made me tea.
Grandma
Thanks,
made you
Grandma.
tea. Hot cinnamon face.
So, we did come here with a purpose.
Yes, we did.
You want to talk about the card we pulled this week?
So our card is like perfect synchronicity to this chapter, which is Isis, and the theme is a past life. And then in the description of chapter 9, recovering a sense of compassion, she does reference your past a lot.
Yeah, and even more than just associating it with our past in this lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
she's talking about getting really honest about our blocks and our fears and all that stuff.
And then that forgiveness stage too.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a fun concept to consider, to open to the possibility that some of these blockages are not even about, exactly, this lifetime or this past, but that you may, in fact, be unblocking and working with things that go beyond that. If you're into that sort of idea. We're not asking you to believe in anything, but perhaps it really could be past life trauma and patterns and dynamics that are coming up for you right now.
Especially if it seems like an unexplainable innate part of yourself. And I do think we have personalities like as we come out day one. Like, and even my friends who are pregnant are saying things that happen in the womb and how they are still similar behaviors at the age of 3, that person that in their child and such. So we do have like these innate things that we can't always explain. Mm-hmm. But this chapter is really all about finding compassion for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So acknowledging them and being real about them, but not judging, not shaming yourself, and treating yourself and this part of yourself, this afraid blocked artist, like a wee babe, like a child that just needs some encouragement and some nurturing.
Yeah. And I think I did this exercise once where I think that it was inspired by one in here, where you write down how you would treat someone that you care for, and then ask yourself, are you doing any of that to you? Mm-hmm. So it's really good. Even with even with like a little kid, like to think, how would I treat a kid? I nurture them.
A kid that you respect.
Yes.
So we're not going to be condescending.
No. Like, how would you care for a child? Like, what would they need? Do you feel like for them to survive and thrive? Mm-hmm. Conversation, higher level conversation. They need to have good food, something wholesome, even though they want to eat junk, just like our adult selves. Mm-hmm. So many things in common. And then when they'd mess up, you wouldn't just yell at them for it. You would talk them through where the mistake was, so that they're aware of it and don't just have that fear. And I feel like even if our parents weren't that compassionate to us in that way at that time, parenting strategies change and awareness changes. You can do that to yourself now. You can raise yourself now.
Mm-hmm. Good one.
I gotta grow myself up right now. Gonna give myself up.
Your motherfucking self. Excuse me.
That does seem like something.
Sorry.
It does seem like something a tired parent would say. Oh, go raise yourself.
but no,
Yeah.
that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
You know, our parents did their best,
They
but
did.
you know, when we know better, we have to do better.
Exactly. Once we know better, we have to do better.
Mm.
And she starts off with fear in the first part of this chapter. Wait, we didn't do our check-in from last week. Sorry, I was too excited.
Well, we do the card. We talk.
Yeah. I jumped.
Synchronicity.
Yeah.
Totally cool. But yes, we do want to hold ourselves accountable.
Yes.
For what happened this last week or didn't happen, whatever the case may be. So, you want to talk about your experience with your pages?
4 out of 7.
Not bad. She was also at FairyCon.
I was at FairyCon this weekend, and I did do it on Saturday, and I'm so thankful that I took time apart from all the other things because I was able to focus on what I really wanted from the conference, and thus it was productive. So, yay!
Wins!
Of course, I wish I had done it on Sunday and Monday, but I know that I did it on the most important social interaction day. The other point that would have been, of course, a much healthier habit to do. And then when I did it today, I was really thankful for getting back in. I did it the full pages and no hesitation. And I did do my artist date last week, but it was a spooky thing. And have you found that your artist dates are getting closer and closer to home?
Well, if they're happening at all. Yeah. I think the weather is a big thing with that for me right now.
Especially if you recharge outside.
Yeah, most of my artist dates have been outdoors, and it's been real hard to...
My walk has become my artist date. My really long walk, not just the 30-minute refocus walk. It's like the hour to hour and a half. So I did that last Tuesday night and had a really psychedelic experience, and I told her about that with the new moon and the veil parting and stuff, and I won't go into it here, but I set out with the intention to reconnect, and then I fulfilled it.
It's so awesome. So beautiful to give yourself that time. Yeah, so I know I ramped it all up last week. I was like, I'm ready for that artist date. I did.
The next one's gonna be even bigger.
Yeah. Oh, next week, you guys wait to hear about it. No, I mean, you know, what?
Yeah.
I was telling her, I just feel like it's, we set ourselves up for these things. So here I am as an adult doing my job, my career, right, and doing many other things that I have set myself, committed myself to as well, and then getting so hard on myself about not doing this other extra thing that I have set up for myself to do. And yeah, it's just I just want to take a moment to kind of connect around that idea of, really not getting overly bummed, and I'm telling this to myself because I am bummed that I still didn't do the artist date. I did my pages a few days out of the week, and I will share that as I was telling Ginnie, I discovered on one day I was even going to do them, and I really feel like this affirmed to me the importance of actually doing it first thing. Like we've talked about how, just do it whenever, it's fine. Yeah. Yes, but I do think that window of time between when you get up and when you do your pages is really, it's time that could be more grounded, more loving, more effective, had you done it earlier. And so I experienced a situation that I think would have absolutely not occurred, a conflict, if I had done the processing that I needed to do with myself versus processing it with another person, which is essentially what happened. The stuff that I needed to work out for myself and do my pages about, I had a conversation about instead. Yeah. So I set myself up because I had a full day of time. So I was like, I'll do them. That's when I was like, I'll do them at some point because my schedule is more open. So lessons.
And I've also recognized that as we've begun to break the blocks in our inner monologue and started to go into the book, sometimes when that inner monologue it like slips out if we haven't done the ritual and we can't control the conversation because it's ready.
Right.
You've taken down the block. It's coming out of that.
It's true.
And then
the filter is not quite.
And so maybe you guys feel, and sometimes it's great. It's good to be in that state because that's the state in which you can make things, in which that block is down, and like
being honest.
And then, but as soon as we let the inner monologue that wasn't supposed to go there go into these ears, then the criticism comes because they're not your journal. They're not. They don't know any of the past discussions that you've been having.
They don't. Yeah. No.
And so, like, I don't, because that's what happened to me. Because I have a similar experience, like it happened a month ago, and I learned too. And I think it's going to probably keep happening. It's at different points in our lives in this process. It'll keep happening, but it's not something that we should like maintain a fear of. We should definitely be like redirect it back because the flow is coming, and so we need to send it out. And that really does also highlight to the fact that even if you've done this for 12 weeks, the importance of keeping the ritual,
right?
Because there's, it took a whole life to get you to this point already.
Right.
It's gonna take more than 12 weeks, or 24 weeks for us, or
and I think the structure of the program itself is designed to just make it a habit for you. It's not designed to you do it and then you're done. Your life is a work of art and your project is complete. I definitely think, that the more time goes by and the more you see in the ebb and flow of how connected you are to the process or not, it just flows naturally. You just want to do it. It's like not even like you're doing it because I signed up for it or, And
you never know when these spills are going to happen. Like you could be writing every day, like Monday through Friday, and then you skip Saturday, then you have lunch with someone in which you already feel vulnerable about staying with them, and then you skip that day, and all of a sudden. So the ritual is good, and not to hate ourselves for it, just like being aware that like, oh, this stuff is coming. I need to manifest my resource to get it out there in the proper channels, right?
Yeah, and I mean, can we go through our life and do our best without it? Sure. I mean, like anything, we don't want to become overly attached to any one practice or method or tool. We can't be like, oh, I didn't do my pages today, so I'm just going to be a raging bitch to everybody.
I'm sorry, I'm a bitch. I didn't do my pages.
Yeah, no.
No one will get you.
We still gotta.
She can't keep a journal. I'm just like at an external point of view trying to explain that to someone and they have no idea what this process is. I'd be like, what?
Yeah, but it is that powerful. I mean, I think it does have that big of it makes that big of a difference in our behavior. But we just can't let it become a crutch.
Yeah.
And not take responsibility for our shit.
I even found that if I have a little notebook with me and write it down on something else, that does help too.
Right.
Like
writing stuff down.
Taking out the napkin at the restaurant, writing real quick while you say, hey, Mom, go to the bathroom. And then you have to write the napkin real quick. It does help. Okay, so those are the major points.
Synchronicity is usually the other question.
Oh, yeah, synchronicity.
It abounds.
Yes. I experience it every day. Every time I'm willing to look for it, it's there. And it surprises me other times. So, are you not seeing synchronicity yet? Are you having issues with doing the things every day? That might be because of fear.
Tell me more.
I'll tell you more. I'll tell you the italicized words here. Blocked artists are not lazy. They are blocked. So this is, she tells you this right after the first paragraph here. I think that summarizes up that feeling right there. It's so easy to feel like you're being too lazy. Like, I'm not being successful because I'm being lazy. That's like the mantra right there. But if you say,
it's my whole life right there.
If you say, I'm not being successful right now because I'm a part of me is refusing to work on the project. I'm blocking myself from it. And like you think it's laziness because you're like, I would just prefer to watch another 2 hours of this show I'm not that into.
But why would you prefer that?
Yeah.
What are you escaping from?
Exactly. And in my head, I'm like, I know I'm just doing this because I don't want to turn on my practice. I'm just doing this because I'm putting, and then all of a sudden it's 5 o'clock, and I'm like, oh, I guess I missed that window. Like, and there's a weird satisfaction of like, well, oh no, I guess I didn't do it. There was that weird satisfaction, like a part of you is rewarding you for this block, and that's when you really know it's a block. And so, I think that's like the biggest thing that we need to start telling ourselves, is that a block is a way to keep us from being productive here. And that once we look at it that way, to not try to come at us with like don't be nice to yourself. Like, don't yell at you like, you lazy butt, get off the couch. Maybe you need to instead say like, well, I guess she gets into that next, you need to be more enthusiastic with your endeavor. I'm like, but what will I gain? Like, I'm about to gain so much by doing this. And then do not call the inability to start laziness. Call it fear. It's another big thing right here. And it is true. Like, if you actually sit back and think about what you're experiencing there, and, ask yourself, like, what do I gain by staying on the couch?
Yeah, and for me, because this process and a lot that I've been through in the last year had me really looking at my lifelong patterns, and I definitely have always struggled with procrastination, and like just basically, like not doing the work. And I really was called and felt like it was a character flaw. And what I was able to like uncover and break down was that it was a deep-seated insecurity and fear. And what doesn't help insecurity and fear is judgment and chastisement. And that, you can like, probably if you actually listen to the voice that's chastising you, probably the voice will start to take a different name or a different sound. All these teachers and I mean, and it just makes it worse. It's a spiral.
It is.
It doesn't help you. And that's, we're all traumatized by those teachers who, bless them, didn't know better, or, really felt like they were trying to encourage you or motivate you, with how they were approaching it. But to just actually undo some of that trauma and say, no, it really wasn't just apathy or laziness. It was, I couldn't do it. I wanted to do it and I couldn't do it, and I didn't know why. And that was like so hard and awful. Like, I've cried in a therapist chair about this concept so many times because I think, I really had some blocks, some really serious blocks that I think could be diagnosed as ADD or other things like that. I think that's just a word that we're calling these blocks. It's just a word for the blocks, and the way that they take different forms.
When we're talking about the spiral, I think about, some people have anxiety, but everyone, it feels anxious. Like, we know the feeling. Some people are.
It's a word for the block.
Yeah, some people are in the state chemically, like for a suspended, like a huge amount of time, but we all understand that feeling that's at its core, and that we can break from it, and just to understand that it is a growing thing, and it keeps telling you like, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, just stay on the couch, just blah blah blah, and like this illusion of safety.
And I'm not here to make any comments about the psychosomatic, is it a disease, a chemical imbalance, or not. Like, yes, seek help, talk to doctors, but also, I think we can look at it from a creative and spiritual perspective also, to aid in the healing process, to also look at, again, this stuff that we're uncovering, these blocks, these fears, these insecurities that are contributing to that disease, right? Which disease and
many artists have been successful with all of them. So just to know that, like, I have this, but this doesn't have to block me. everything out there on the books. There has also been an artist who has worked with it, or has worked, you can draw without hands. Like you can do truly anything, but a part of these mental illnesses we have is that we feel that we can't, and that there's a reward back there for not, and to continue telling you that. And every time you continue the mantra, it's like, yes, like the nail goes in further, but you can reverse the hammer and pull it out. But it does take work, which is what we're here for. We're all here. We all have our different blocks and have our different things.
Fist bump for being here.
Yes.
And showing up. Go you.
At whatever state you are in the game right now.
Totally.
And I guess I will, let me see. I will end this part of the chapter with a few of her words right here. The need to be a great artist makes it hard to be an artist. The need to produce a great work of art makes it hard to produce any art at all. So I feel like this is our perfectionist totally clicking in. And the perfectionist is the ultimate critic. And we all have it. And the perfectionist can manifest so many beautiful things, so many great details, but they're also the one telling you not to even start because you're not perfect. And whatever state you are in, you are perfect. So.
And I'm just going to take a moment to remind myself, because I think this is a red flag for me that I want to start catching myself on. When I start denying that I'm a perfectionist, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, that's not me. I'm not that. I absolutely have.
I never knew I was one until a professor called me out on it. She goes, "You're being a perfectionist right now." And as a teacher, you really can't be a perfectionist teacher. It should not exist. Not on yourself, not on your students, not in any of the part of the process.
Especially not on your students.
Yeah, especially not on your students. 100%. I was being a perfectionist about some way I'd structured a lesson or something, and like being upset about getting a B instead of an A.
Yeah.
And she was like, "You're a perfectionist." I'm like, "What? But I'm so messy."
Right. Exactly. I'm like, but like I just, I do things at the last minute. I'm having a cramp in my foot. I apologize.
Stretch it out.
Right now. But yeah, I just do things at the last minute and put it out. Like, but then how much shit do I give myself for it? Yeah. I think that's even more than, like maybe I do kind of put things out quickly, but then, there's absolutely that voice in my head that is tearing myself down for it at the same time. So
I think, we're at a blissful state where we'll be like, I put it out quickly, but these are the things I gained. These are the things I gained from doing it.
Yeah.
I could have not done it. I always tell myself that now. I'm like, I could also have just not gone to that hafla.
Yeah.
And not tried to do it at all.
And to be honest, that used to be me. I used to flake on things all the time. Yeah. I've really stopped that since this process. I've been like, that's one of the biggest things.
You've really grounded me too in that, saying, no, I'm going to act with integrity. And that's what I tell myself. I'm like, you know what? I feel kind of sick and sniffly. I could stay home. I could go to this friend's party, but no.
And it's even less about your relationship with other people and fulfilling your obligations to others. And it's way more about building confidence and trust with yourself.
And then it always comes out productive because I did it. Yeah. And I always feel happy for doing it.
Right. You're building that relationship with yourself. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
And then you don't have any guilt later on of not doing it.
Yeah. So that's part of what I'm struggling with, and what I was talking about earlier, like being bummed that I'm not doing my artist date and stuff like that, because it's like I'm flaking on myself. It's not anybody else. It's just me.
It's interesting with this process now. Like you've taken that external thing that you would do and made it like an internal thing. It's like there's a need to flake somewhere. Where should I flake?
Something's gotta flake. Yeah. True. But I think this is really helpful for me to hear right now. This next section is about enthusiasm. I remember this was one of my favorite moments in this book, was this little quote down here. So, she's talking about how we all kind of get stuck in this idea that discipline is required to really make it as an art. To make any decent work, you have to have this like ironclad militant style discipline.
That's the academic approach too, right?
Yeah, and I think I think it's so beautiful. I think discipline to me is like really, really gorgeous. The devotion, and the surrender to a practice. Beautiful to me. But an important balance to that concept, because you have to, I think, but she's trying to encourage us to find a way to where we're coming at it because we want to, right? And it's not out of obligation, because obligation is a creativity killer. And that's not where you're going to make your best work, is that. I think if you don't feel inspired to show up anyway, yes, that's discipline, and that is where consistency and things come from. But there are ways to romance your artist to make it more playful. And she's coming back to this idea that the artist is like a child, and you have to kind of make it feel safe enough to come out and play. And that's when your best, freest, most authentic work will come out. She says, enthusiasm is grounded in play, not work. Far from being a brain-numb soldier, our artist is actually our child, our inner playmate. As with all playmates, it is joy, not duty, that makes for a lasting bond. What other people may view as discipline is actually a play date that we make with our artist child. I'll meet you at 6 a.m. and we'll goof around with that script, painting, sculpture. That's that quote that just like lit me up inside. It just really turned me on and made me feel so excited about creativity and just how romantic. I think I'm also learning about archetypes right now, and I'm realizing I have this really strong lover archetype in me. So that romantic notion of let's wake up and have this morning together with your artist is just really enticing to me. So it's learning about yourself and what makes you feel like that little kind of trickstery engagement where you're like, ooh, this will be really fun and romantic. Or if it is more playful, childlike, or whatever it is, rebellious, however you can make it juicier.
I think too, that's what, just when you said that was funny. I had an image of my grandmother, how she would wake up at super early in the morning and she would smoke, have a coffee, and listen to her favorite, or read her favorite newspaper or something. And she looked forward to that. She didn't just have to get up. And then, by noon, this is when she was retired, she would smoke, have a beer, and start reading her favorite books. And so, how much we look forward to. So what maybe ask yourself, what are you willing to stay up late for? Way past your bedtime. What's the 2 a.m. fun time for you? And then I think sewing projects I've had where I was can't go to bed yet. This is awesome. I'll make it a stress skirt. So I think that's what I used to call them, where I was stressed out, so I'm going to make a skirt. And then I would play with the scrap fabric, which I still do. Just what are we willing to stay up for? And maybe that's where you should start going with that enthusiasm trend.
Yeah, this is so helpful to me, this conversation and this process.
Because I think we're both not really morning people, so waking up for something is impossible. But I will stay up for something. I love the idea of it, but
the reality doesn't usually pan out. Setting myself up for failure with that one. So I'm gonna do this sunrise artist date. No.
I'd be happy not to see a sunrise. It's the sunset. They're so beautiful, but
when you live on the ocean,
that's true.
They become a little more appealing.
They are.
In a city,
in the hills and the trees.
Yeah.
And I've seen some beautiful sunrises. I used to see them all the time when I drove to work, but now I don't drive to work, and it's that's okay.
Fine with that. So I'll enjoyed the sunrise right here in my bed.
Exactly.
I'm enjoying it, even though I can't see it.
I feel the vibe.
Totally. All right. Yeah, but I think that's all I wanted to share about enthusiasm.
Which then leads us to the creative U-turns that she has right here, which is something that we have all felt at different times of our lives. And the trick is catching them. So she starts off by telling you this. A productive artist is quite often a happy artist or a happy person, which is surprising when you actually say that out loud, but it shouldn't be.
Right. The myth of our culture is that artists are troubled.
When we are doing and making things, we're really happy because we're being fulfilled, and our purpose is being fulfilled as well, and we're feeding ourselves.
Yeah.
And then so she gets into this concept that she has here called Harakiri, which I can never remember, but it goes into the self-sabotage nature that we have, these creative U-turns where we don't feel like we are ready or we are worth. So really, I challenge you, because I'm starting to see that too. When I give myself a boundary that doesn't need to exist. I was like, I'm working with a trio right now, and I said, well, we really should only work with one song right now. We're not ready yet for a mashup. And I was like, screw that, Ginny. Like, who said that? We can make
Debbie Downer.
I know, we can make a mashup. And I said it afterwards. They were like laughing at me because they're like, what? Two different conversations, same person. And I was like, I can't believe I set that block up for myself. Like, where is that coming from? We're not ready. Like, we're here. If we can make it, we're ready.
Yeah, what is ready? What does
Exactly. But like, that's like a little thing in the conversation that I say, and like these boundaries that I set of like, just because maybe I heard someone else needed it, or because someone wrote an article about it, all of a sudden they're an authority figure on it, on who's ready for what, right? And then
that inner authority, the most important one.
And it denies creative U-turns. So when we tell ourselves that we're not ready for something, when we're offered the opportunity for it, we turn it down because a part of us is like, well, I don't want to. For at least in my situation, it's like, well, I don't want to upset anyone with the quality of work. But I often find that if someone's offering it to you, it's because you are ready. If you see a job offer out there that's directly what you want to do, you might be ready for it. And what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, you apply and they say, no, sorry, we have another person. Like, there's literally nothing you can lose. But how there's so many opportunities out there that we don't get just because we don't think that we're ready. Or like, the worst is, I think, for us, like any person, I'm just talking about the job field right now. Well, I'm not ready to transfer to that yet because I haven't told my current boss that I'm considering leaving. It's like, screw other people's timelines. When it's happening now. Go for it now. And it's probably within your line. If this is something that you're seeking and the universe is giving it to you.
Yeah, worst case scenario, you learn something.
Exactly. So she says right here, we're more comfortable being a victim of artist block than risking having to consistently be productive and healthy, which is feeding into all of this, right? Like I'm more comfortable being hurt, being sad, being lonely.
Yeah, you got to admit. So this kind of goes into what we're doing in our class this week. But yeah, talking about recognizing that you have the situation that you have right now because that's what you want. Like all the things you're not doing, or the things you wish were better. You have to be honest. If they're not happening, it's because that's what actually you created that. You are happier. Actually, you are happier being blocked.
Yes.
And when you can admit that reality, that's when it gives it a chance to air out, breathe, and perhaps make a different choice.
Totally. It's so hard to readjust the pattern, even in our language. Like, especially in our language. I feel like that comes the last. And then once we change our language, then we'll find everything else is changing in time with it. And then she goes into here talking about recycling times. And when you have found that you are have these periods of big periods of U-turns, maybe that's when you're trying to actually step back. Once again, maybe giving it a different name for a bit and then having some compassion and empathy for it. A successful creative career is always built on successful creative failures. The trick is to survive them. And that can only be survived through compassion. And then you all of a sudden we reframe it and it becomes a learning experience, right?
Compassion, and I would add maybe like some resilience, but I guess that comes through compassion. Like you can only have resilience if you also have that self-compassion.
If you're hurting on yourself really bad, that's like denying, you're like stripping yourself raw and like heaving in the car over and over again for days at a time, then we're not being fully compassionate with ourselves there. It's a learning experience. But also the best thing is creative failures do lead us directly to creative successes.
They do, yeah.
Mhm.
They're really not. Failure again would
Mhm.
perhaps be the incorrect word.
Yeah.
So reframing,
Yeah.
changing your language around things that didn't go the way you wanted them to.
And I'm sure with time, when you have the external like look down, you go, oh yeah, this one project didn't work out, but hey, it did. I used that same idea in this project.
Right, exactly. All the things that you gained from that will
Yeah.
become clear.
This kind of feels like an inventor's manual at this point right here.
Yeah.
And then lastly, right here, this is the part that impacted me, where I am in my life so much. Right here was once we admit the need for help, the help arrives, and that comes in so many different forms. I realized with the job I wanted, I had done the research, and then what I did was I like fanned out all via social media and asked all my friends, like, hey, does anyone know like someone who works at this job? Turns out I did have a close friend who did know someone that she met at a party that worked at a job, and she connected me with her, and then that's how I got the job I have now. Like, all you have to do is but you have to know what you want. Once you know what you want, once you know what you want, then you fan out, you seek out, and it comes.
Yeah. And it's a constant check-in process, because what you want will change.
It will change. Yeah, for sure. That's why we were always doing the process, right?
Yes. Yeah. But so the last section here, blasting through blocks, she gives us some tools for how to uncover and work through these things. It's actually kind of more of an exercise than a chapter, a section in here. But let's see. So this little line here, blocks are seldom mysterious. They are instead recognizable artistic defenses against what is perceived, rightly or wrongly, as a hostile environment. So these questions are helping you to determine what in the dynamics surrounding whatever creative project you're feeling blocked on, what just getting into the dynamics of all of that. So she's asking us to list any anger or resentment we have, and this is like gold for me right now, because even having been through this process and like talking about these things so much, I'm realizing now that I have been really trying in my pages and everything to really be positive. I'm like catching myself in this, like I haven't been asking like what is pissing me off.
Yeah.
Like what am I resentful of? And so here, so beautiful to like probe that. So to not just, because sometimes we just show up the pages and even unconsciously we're just, kind of skimming the surface or like wanting to focus on the good things, which is natural. Of course, that's where we want to be because that feels good. But how important to go in and just ask yourself brutally honestly, like, what is not